Alright, guys, and we are back. And today I want to try to finish making the game as far as a start screen, die screen, and win screen with buttons. Uh, Now, you won't be able to upload this game, or you will be able to upload this game right away to something like iDev, but I don't think it would be finished enough to actually upload to Apple or anything. So we're still not within the realm of actually making money on this upload if we get there on this video. But that being said, we have loaded into our project. A tip for all beginners: when you first load in for the first time of the day, play the game. Make sure everything's still working, like staying on the ladders. Make sure you know which ones you gotta fix, like that's gotta be a solid. This needs to be a collectible. That needs to be a solid. And this is actually supposed to kick me out over here. And another collectible. Another solid wall. And we gotta make that solid plus a kill. So now that we have our plan, we know what we want to do and what we need to do, let's go ahead and do it. First we saw, these need to be a solid. So you can find it on the behaviors, you can find it here. I'm just going to right click and add behaviors and solid. And for good measure, just so they can't move, we're going to add one more behavior and anchor it. And for these collectibles, they do not need to be a solid unless you want to land on them. Uh, but usually once you collect something, it disappears, so you really can't land on it. Um, do we have the sine wave? We do have the sine wave on that one, and we're skipping it on this one, I believe. So the next thing would be, uh, well, actually, since we happen to select that one, make sure it is a solid in the behaviors over here, which it is not. And don't forget the other little one down here. Make that a solid. And then the full one here is also going to be made a solid. And if you had already made that a solid, when you right click, add behavior, you can't add it again. So if you don't have the option, you may have already made it a solid, and you can find that information over here on the side. Or like say if you want to check this one, edit behaviors, it tells you what's in there. That will go on from the left and the right side, it will pop up that screen. So let's go ahead and make this a solid. And this doesn't need to be a solid because the way we're going to code it later, it just doesn't make a difference. And actually, if you do make it a solid, it could prevent the code from running. So we have everything needs to be a solid as a solid. So we need this thing to send us to a die screen, like a screen that says you died, retry. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over on the project sheet here, click on layouts and add layout. And yes, you do want to add an event sheet. So we're going to keep this super simple. We're going to add a sprite. You can add an image of your window saying the text. You can create the window and the text in here, which is how we're going to do it today. Because this is going to be made for all beginners at all levels. So basically just pick whatever color you want. I'm going to go with like a light blue. And make sure the paint bucket's filled. So now we're going to resize this. Our project is 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to say 800 by 800 is our window size. And let's just switch this to white. So if you truly want to add a little bit of flair, and it does not go down when you need it to, so you might have to zoom out while holding if you didn't see the whole thing, especially if you want to get close enough to be able to see what you're doing. And I know that's not perfect, but I really don't care because this is just an image holder. It is just temporary. We're going to replace this image later when we actually get to saving it for an upload. So now that we have that, we can exit out of that. And with multiple layouts, you still, just like this, you don't want to get lost. So you're going to want to change these names. So layout 1, you can click and then wait a second, click again. It'll highlight it. Right click, rename. And we're going to say game level 1. And then you die or you died, however you want to label that. So now that this one's labeled as you die, we need to get this thing in the center of the screen. And we need to fix our gray background. So remember, the gray background's bigger than the viewport. The viewport being what you can see is inside this little square. We're going to change it to the same size as our file. And remember, comma for the space. You don't actually need a space in between. So how are we going to center this? Because I don't just want to guess this time. So we're going to put this to the side, make sure it's not center. Put the size, or not size, the position. So 1920, half of 1920 would be 960. And half of 1080 would be 540. And as long as your origin image point is still in the center, doing half of the image size will put it directly in the middle. So let's create a new object, text, and we're going to say somewhere like right here. If you want to get particular, follow me and extend it out to the borders here. We're going to name this die banner. And on the properties on the left side, we're going to find the properties, text, and change this text. And it says, you died. Now, if you know your name, like say Times New Roman, you can do that. I'm going to be using impact, but let's say you don't know what you want. Click the three dots. It says you can go down here, scroll through all the options, and I actually have 5 or 6 different fonts uploaded. It is not compatible with this, so not every font will be available. So we're just going to go with the simple impact. Turn it up to, say, 75. Yeah, 75 is good. And since we lost some of our visual, just make sure you can see it. And then back on the left over here. I don't want it to be white, because it might be a little too bright. So what we're going to do is make sure we're on white. And we're just going to bring this down and say 245, 245, and 245. So that basically says where this was white, all the way white, we just dragged it down to like right here. Oh, close enough. Oh, and if you do that, let us make sure we add custom color if you want to reuse it for anything else. That way it saves it here. And then horizontal alignment, we want it to be center. vertical alignment, it doesn't matter because we're going to click and drag wherever we want it vertically. And wrapping doesn't matter. Text direction left to right. Maybe if you wanted to be right to left, you could, if you have reason for that. So now that that's done, we're going to insert another new object. Go to text. And same thing, we're just going to keep it all the way across. Make it bigger so we can try not to lose anything. And we're going to name this Guide Info. So on the text here, or with this selected, you can double click or hit enter. And this way, we're going to do it this way this time instead of text on the left for one specific reason. It says, you have died. Try again. Now this is why you want to either double click or hit enter to get into the text editing. If you don't want to make a new image, you can shift enter and make multiple lines. If you do that on the left, it will not go down. It will just enter the text into the dialog box. So now we also want to make sure, say, well, avoid spikes, collect the power ups, and get to the door to win. Make sure you don't have any misspelled letters, and hit OK, or just enter without the shift being held. So like I said, you can just type in your name if you know what kind of text you want. And we're going to say this one's going to be, what, 40? No, maybe too big, so 25. There you go. Now instead of coming over here doing the thing again with the colors, we can just click that one. And it's got my 246s there. And just like before, we're going to center to the horizontal alignment. And so now we just need our buttons. Insert new object. We're going to do 2 buttons for the demonstration. You only have to do one, whichever way you wish to do it. And we are not actually going to get too into detailed on this button because I do not like that button. But let's insert a new object. And this can be our other retry button. And as before, upload one or make one. So we're going to say, let's make this one like a pink or purple, whatever that. I'm actually a little colorblind, guys, so I don't know what color that is. Alright. Make these bigger just so we can see them. And I'm not going to worry about official placement because these are just demonstrations. We'll fix the placement later. So, with your button selected, so I'm going to leave it named button and just add retry at the end. And if you add a space, it will not let you. It will capitalize the first letter and push it closer, which I do not actually like capitals. And then custom retry. So for our button, you have some options to choose from here. Like on the properties, the text being okay, we can change it to retry. And if you wanted to, you could make it a checkbox. And that's pretty much what we can do. I don't know if there's actually a way to change the image of the button. I think it is just as it is. So if you want your own button with your own style, with your own look, you're using a sprite. So let's use this sprite and we're going to create some button actions. So we're going back in here and right click on an empty space to add a frame. And make sure it's selected without the pink, purple, whatever color that is showing. So let's say blue. Run and make that blue. And now it's blue on frame 1. And since we have multiple frames, go to animation. Make sure that's ticked to 0 because we do not want it to play. We want it to sit on one of these frames and then move when we tell it to. And then if you truly want, let us do one more add frame. And actually for this one, we're going to delete that and duplicate this frame. So I'm going to take my circle tool this time. And we're going to just make this quite a bit darker. And it don't have to be perfect for this. Oh, apparently it wants to load in from the center, which is fine by me. There we go. And now it's basically acting like that is where your thumb is down, where you're pushing the button. So that is animation 2 for button pressed. And now we need to code those buttons. So let's go to event sheet, but we don't have event sheet up here. So let's go ahead and event sheet 2. And let's go event game. Rename the event sheet 1 as any kind of name that you would understand that it's going for the game level. And then we'll just name this one event died. So now that we have event died, we can double click that and add a new event. Oh, but I do believe we actually need to go back and right click, insert a new object. Yep, we do not have any of these in our project yet. So we need to include the mouse. We need to include the keyboard. And if you want to get a head start, oops, that is not what we're doing. Delete that. Sprite 2, delete that. There we go. Now, if you want to get a head start, you can add touch, but we're not coding for that yet, so I'm just going to leave it alone. And now we can actually go to the event sheet and say button retry on clicked. Because it's set up as a button in Construct 3, it already has that option set. I believe that it would be even if we don't have a mouse included in our project. So you may not need to add a mouse to control this one. And what's the action that we're going to do? We're going to tell the system that we want to go to layout, game level. And we're going to do the same thing for the custom retry. And as you can see here, I don't have an on click. Well, let me just make sure. If you're ever curious, at the top right there, just type in the name of the action that you're looking for. Since we know it's on click, you can just type click, and it's not in here. So how are we going to do this? We need to find a way to make that a button. And the best way I have found to do it is by going into the layout page, setting this here, and we're going to add some behaviors. We haven't added any behaviors yet, so I don't need to see what's on there. And first and foremost, we are going to anchor it. And then we are going to add another behavior and drag and drop. Now, with drag and drop, players will be able to drag and drop this anywhere, but we don't want that. That's why we did the anchor, because it's going to anchor it to this location while it's on screen. And I will show you why we did the drag and drop. Let's do the custom. So anchor is enabled. We're not going to worry about that. It's just noticing that we added some code to make it a smart object. Just like the button, that's a smart object that the in-game button has. So on drag start, do not do is enabled, do not do is dragging, because with it anchored, it cannot move, and it counts when it's actually moving. So on drag start is basically on click. And then on that action, we're going to tell the system, and we're going to go to layout game level 1, because this is just the same button, difference of a regular button versus custom button. But since this is a custom button, we need to add a little bit more code. So we're going to add a new event, custom retry, and oh no, actually it's back. So the command is going to be triggered by the mouse and not by custom retry. Sometimes that can get a bit confusing on knowing where to start. So if the action you're looking for is not here, any other part of the game, like the mouse, go into here and see if you can find it. But this is what we're looking for on this one. So when cursor is over object, click and choose custom retry. We are going to tell, and remember, we're going to tell the action to make custom retry. And remember how we set animation frames for 0, 1, and 2? Well, this is where we go to animations, set frame, and 1, because we know 1 is our hover and it's going to change to blue. And because it's on drag and drop start, it may not actually do the click action, but we're going to try to code for that one as well. So we're going to say, actually, let's go ahead and see if we can fix that. So on drag and drop start, we're going to change this go to game level by double clicking. Then we're going to make it go back. And we're going to go up to, oh, we're on system actions up here. We don't want to be on system actions. So we're going to hit back again. Custom retry, set frame to 2, because that is our clicked and held state with the dark blue on the center. So now we're going to say custom retry on a brand new action by adding a new event is on drop. So basically on click released. We're going to tell the system to go to layout game level. Done. And now this event sheet is coded for everything that we have right here currently. So let's give that a test. And as you see, I don't have to play the game to get here. Oh, we have some code we need to fix. So the retry button looks like it's working right. On hover, it's going to go dark as part of the custom setup for the button option. And it's going to go here. And if you don't want to get back out, you can reload by hitting F5 and it puts you back where you started. So as you can see on hover over, it changed it to blue, but it did not change it back. So event, and remember this is basically we're setting animation frame, so we are toggling. So since we toggled on, we need to toggle off. So when the mouse is over the custom retry button, we're setting the animation frame to the mouse over or mouse hovering frame. So we're going to take this entire set of code, control copy, and control paste. So now we're going to say invert with a right click. Make sure only this part is highlighted and you're right clicking directly in this section. And invert. And then we can change by double clicking set animation frame to 0. And now it should work properly. There we go. And it's changing for us. But my on drag start did not work. But I released the click and it sent me here. So that did work. So on drag start, set animation frame 2. I do not know why that didn't work. Let's see if we can change this code to make it work, or if we're just going to get rid of it for the moment. Because once you add touch controls, it will definitely work. Let's just start with the top. So, compare, no. And just to make sure I didn't overlook something, I'm going to make sure press no. Unpressed is not an option. So let's just go ahead, get rid of this useless code that's not working, and we can deal without the click action. Which also means instead of drag and drop on drop, we can just change this to on drag start. And now our original code before the button press is back in there. So since we've made some changes, just go back in here. We don't need to retry this button because we know it works, and that one works. So now we also need a page for you win. Let's go to layouts, add a new layout, and also add the event sheet. And when you do that, it already comes in highlighted. Just know the name you want to have. Say you win. Event sheet for win. So now what we're going to do is we're going to call this one super quick, super easy. We didn't name it, but we know this one is our sprite. And remember half and half, so 1920 would be 960. And 540 for half of 1080. And then we need to find our text object, or actually we need to make a new text object. Text. I'm going to rush through this one since it's the same process as before. Don't forget to rename. You win. And text. You win. Oops. And I'm changing to impact. We did 75 for the banner. And horizontal alignment to center. And then if you really want, go back to the custom colors you saved and put that color in there. We're going to do another new object, another text. Going to put you here, go across, just give it some space. Win info. So this is where I'm going to say we're going to click and hit enter to edit the text. You won. Collect your prize of 10 coins because that's a super easy level. Watch an ad to increase your coins to 50. And if you want to add more information down here, blah blah blah, you can. So impact, just make sure that's the same. I think we went with 20, and we're going to do the custom color. And line height. I was hoping we could. Size, no. Well, if you don't like it overlapping a little bit on the lines, just push it in a little bit, then try to do it as equally as you can here. And since we know how to code buttons, button retry. And I do want to show you something here. If you drag this button retry, say it's going to do the same thing. Because right now we're not coding for variables. We don't have any variables to give them coins, and we don't have coins to give them. Although you don't actually need a physical object of a coin to give them coins. That's part of the variables, part of the coding. So we're just going to keep it simple and retry, restart to game level 1. So now we need to go to event sheet for win. And we're going to add event when button retry is clicked. We're going to go to system and layout game level 1. So now let's take a look at this. Button retry. Say you wanted to make it say claim instead. Well, now you have an issue. Or you might not have an issue. Let's see if it loaded into there. I actually believed it would change that. So you can reuse buttons, put different text in, because it's going to remember this state for this layout. And since this is a different layout, you can change it, apparently. If that gives you issues, just create a new button, and all you have to do is just change the text, and then do the same code that we did here. For onClick, go to level, or when we get the variable, we're going to change this to add coins to account. So let's just give this a good old test. Make sure my claim sends me back to there, which it did. So now you officially have an almost perfectly running game. You have a died screen for when you hit this, and you have a win screen for when you hit that. So we need a little bit more code, and then this will be available to upload for game dev. Now, or iDev. iDev, I do not believe they let you put ads in your game, so we are going to skip that for iDev, but sometime in the future we will get there. I am actually still learning that process myself. And so now, with our buttons here, our collectibles here, we need to do some coding. So, event for the game, we are going to say player. Kind of wish I was using a picture of a player because that would be a little bit easier for me to see. So when the player, and yes, my favorite, is overlapping another object, and we're going to say no barrier image. What we want to do is take the no barrier image and we are going to destroy it because once you collect it, you don't want to be able to collect it again because it would just be useless. So now we also need to find our barriers. We're adding an action directly underneath that one. We're going to tell the barriers that they need to be destroyed as well. So let's do this again. We're going to add event, do the same process, only instead of no barrier, it's going to be no sides. If you don't want to type it all in again, control copy, control paste, and then double click and change this one to no sides. And since we changed that to no sides, we're going to double click these, back this up one step, and we're going to say no sides needs to be destroyed. And you don't have to find destroyed because it remembers that's the previous selection. So we're going to go to barrier, back that up a step, and we're going to destroy moving with sides image. That's the moving platform that's moving left and right. And as I said, it remembers destroy, so we hit enter again. And now we have that. But those game level, these little things here, remember, have been set initially visible as unchecked, so they are not visible at the current time. And make sure you're on the right event sheet for event game. And we're going to add a new event. So this time the trigger will be moving with sides image. And this is our trigger because there are many different ways to code this. You could say, you could even put it on when no more sides is overlapping with the player. You could add it right down here. It does not make a difference. But we're going to show this method and say, when moving with sides, go down here, on destroyed. So it has a setting for when you destroy something, it's going to realize an object is being removed, and you can set code to it. And the code we want to set is moving bottom, or is for the image of moving bottom, the bottom moving platform. And since it was set for invisible at start, we need to make sure the appearance is going to change and set to visible. And then we're going to add another action directly right and directly under. And this one's going to be moving top. And we're going to do the same thing, find appearance and make it is showing visible. Now, if for any reason, say an action or overlay or running over top of something, you would want those to disappear, you would have to do a basically vice versa clause. So if the no sides stayed active and was not destroyed, but you ran into it again, you could say uh, is overlapping sides. If this is visible, then set it to invisible. And then vice versa clause that, saying if it is invisible, set it visible. But we're not going to worry about all that code because we don't need to do that. So again, we're just going to go test our game layout. And if you don't want to run through the entire project, just set yourself where you know it's going to be an easy start. and it remembers that. So my barriers have disappeared. Nothing else has changed. I still can't do anything with this. We're gonna have to fix that. That invisible barrier might be too close. I think that's the only one that's giving us problems too. Here we go. And oh, now we have our issue. We do not have movement on those, so we still can't actually get down to. That was weird. I don't know what happened there. We still couldn't actually get down to this level. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to find our two little moving sides. So since we have the bottom one selected, that's the one we're going to look at. And we gave it the solid so they could land on it, but we did not give it the sign behavior. Now, if we're this far and you forgot the numbers for your sign back and forth, we are going to take a look at this one, go down to sign. So horizontal for sign for magnitude 390. And that will work for these because the center of this image matches the center of this image in the X value. It does not have to match in the Y value. So we're gonna, instead of going to the left, I'm gonna do right click, add behavior, scroll all the way down and hit sign. So we have horizontal, sign, or, and then if you forgot by now, magnitude 390. Here we go. Let's change this to 390. And we'll repeat the actions, adding a behavior, scroll to sign, and change this to 390. So now we want to just make sure that that bit of code is working. We're going to drag our player over to this one. Oh, I'm trying to use WSAD. So you have a little bit more issue here. You could probably get down to it like that. And if you want to make it that complicated, you can. But I do not want to make it that complicated. This is the easy level, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into here, make sure your top mover or bottom mover is selected. And we're going to say period offset or period random. So let us actually make this period of 6 and period random 2. So basically what it's saying is, remember, always look down here for your little hints if you forget. Add a random number of seconds to the period up to this value. So in other words, it could play, or it could take 6 seconds to go across, or it could take 8 seconds to go across. But now that we know that, I thought it was actually the other way. We're going to keep that at 4 because we want it to go from 4 to 6 seconds. And we're going to do the same thing here, but we also do not want it to be directly above or directly under. And we also don't want to make them wait a couple minutes for it to finally lose sync. So we're going to do period offset of 5, or a period of 5, a period random of 3, and let us look at the offsets. Initial time in seconds through the cycle. In seconds. So basically, the period offset is going to be 1 second. Let's say 1 second. So the initial time is going to be 5, or it could be 6, 7, or 8. And then the period offset is going to add 1 to that. So it could actually be 7, 8, or 9. seconds to go all the way back across. Now that we've set that, let's take a quick look. And there we go. Now the floors are moving randomly. If you want to fine tune that, that would be fine. But let's add another piece of code that would be good, useful for teaching. So let us say you were happy with, why can't I click? Oh, everything's lagging. I've hit a time to where it doesn't like recording. So, with this selected, let's say you're happy with its sine wave. You're extremely happy with it. Well, what you could do is you could completely go in here, edit the behaviors, and take out that sine wave. Now, a few things to remember. If this is initially visible at the start of game, you may not be able to do this. But let's put this, say, offset to here. Now we are in a little bit of an issue. Um, Still shouldn't go over far enough because we have our barriers to keep our guy on the ladder. As long as it doesn't go over top of the ladder, we are fine. But either way, we're just going to show this for demonstration and then we'll change it back to the code that I had. So for demonstration purposes, we're going to add a behavior onto this one. Edit behaviors, add a new behavior, and we are going to pin it. And what does pin do? Stick to object or stick to another object, maintaining relative distance and angle. So basically, when you pin this, it's like pinning it to a tack board. And the tack board doesn't have to be on, or the item doesn't have to be on the tack board. Because the tack board that we're using is this one. So, but we set the pin. There we go. And I do believe we need to add another pin option. I actually haven't played with this yet, but I've seen a little bit, so I'm gonna hope I got it right. So we're just gonna go in here and test this. So nothing is happening. That is because probably we didn't set any code. So now that we've got the pin behavior set on this, let's go into event game. And moving bottom is the trigger. And we're going to say when it is visible. And I don't think that's system actions. So remember, since we are doing the moving bottom, we need the moving bottom. And we need to pin it to object. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing. And what object are we pinning it to? We're pinning it to the moving top object. And we don't want it to copy the Y. We want it to copy the X because we want it to copy the left and right movement. Angle. And turn angle off. Width and height. Basically, if it's changing size, you could let it change the size. And the Z elevation, if you're moving it higher up in the layer or lower down in the layer, above or behind objects, you could copy that action as well. So now let's see how that looks. And for some reason, it doesn't like the invisible code or is visible code. Either that or when moving bottom is visible, moving bottom is pinned to moving top. Unless I pin moving top to moving top. No, I pinned moving bottom. So let's change this from is visible to solid is enabled and test that one. Oh, solid is enabled, but it's still not pinning. I really thought I was going to show you something there, guys, but to be honest, it wouldn't work out with our game, and I will show you why. Because when it's moving back and forth, it's going to move the same distance, and it could end up over here, and then over here, it might only go this far, keeping us from reaching this platform. So I'm just going to go Control Z on a lot of this until that is back over there. And we want to make sure all of our behaviors are set back to where it was. This one's set as a solid. We need to make sure the sign was set. And I do believe we set 5, 3, 390, and offset of 1. Something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, except for the magnitude. So just go in here, since we did a bunch of Control Z's, we're going to make sure nothing changed here. So period 4, random 2, magnitude 390, and we did not want an offset. With that being there, we can test this out. Yep. Oh, well, can we jump onto it? Cannot jump high enough to get onto it. Kind of. That is so weird. I'm not even pressing any buttons to stay on it. So if someone figured that out, they could eventually cheat and do this if they could get this to show on screen. And actually, let us do something as a test. Because I do believe that those might be there. Yeah, as you see, it stopped me and it just dragged me, because even though those objects are invisible, they are still doing the sine wave back and forth at random intervals. So we need to fix that. So we need to go into event game, add a new event, and we are going to say when moving bottom is visible. Yes, we're going to try this one again and invert it. So when it's not visible, or well, no, we'll set that in just a second. We need to invert again. So when the moving platform is visible, we are going to tell moving platform bottom, set solid as enabled. And if you ever forget exactly which one you picked, you can just drag this over, say, now I can see it. So now we need moving top is visible. Oh, I don't know why I'm over there. And moving top is going to set the solid as enabled. And remember, when we toggle a setting, we need vice versa clause. So Control C, Control V, Control C, and Control V. And this is where we are just going to invert these and then double click on the set solid enabled to make it disabled. So now, is our moving platforms in the way? I didn't get hit that time. I didn't get hit this time. That's a good sign. But we also need to make sure it didn't mess up the rest of our code. So we're going to drag up our player here and test it again. We'll break this up and it's set to solid, awesome. And as you can see here, we had a little bit of issue. Yeah, we can cheat that way. We're going to have to find a way around that, or we'll find a way to block that. And we still can't quite get up there because I didn't give myself enough room. So since this is farther in, we need to change the magnitude of this just ever so slightly. So we're going to say 410 and give it another test so we can see it right away. And say 430. Give it another test. There you go. Now that will be close enough to get to that platform. And there we go. Now we need to code the key, and we need to code the door, and we need to code the death. Oh, you don't need to select that. Let's go to Event Game Sheet. So when the trigger is going to be the player, is overlapping another object of the key. Yes, my favorite action. And we need to make sure, now that we're setting code for this, we need to make absolutely sure our game is set up the way we want. So, when, yeah, I think I'm going to have to maybe do a little bit of code with the way we set this up. So with that door there, let's find our other door. Yep, it is directly on top and below, but door locked should be visible. Door open should be set as invisible because we don't want it on screen. We don't, even just in case it would be overlapping a little bit, we don't want it to affect our code. So when key is overlapping, or when player is overlapping key, our action that we're going to add to that is door locked is going to be destroyed. Now, as before up here, you can do when door locked is destroyed, or we're going to keep it short and simple and tell this same action to do another action because there's not multiple different ways to do this action. So when that is destroyed, it will then take the door open. And remember where it was set to be invisible? We need to set it to be visible. And let's code in the depth for the spikes. So we're going to say when our player, and we did make this a solid, so that way we couldn't fall through it, and this will affect our code just a little bit. So is overlapping spikes, done, add the action, system action, and go to layout of you died. So let's test that code. It's not doing nothing because where it's a solid, we can't actually overlap. So this is how we're going to fix that. You could either take off the solid because it doesn't matter if they fall through it, it's going to send us straight to the next layout. Um, or if you want to change the is overlapping to is overlapping at offset and Y controls the up and down, we're going to do an offset of 5. A positive number sends it up and a negative some number sends it down. So let's go in here and test this again. Oh, we died. There we go. So just a few pixels off from the picture and we are sending it to died. Now let's code for the door. So when the player is overlapping another object of door locked, because that is the first door that is on our screen, we're going to add the action of the player and there it is. So we are going to set the size and position. You can do set position if you want. You can set a set position on the X dimension or on the Y dimension. We're going to save a little bit of effort with the coding and say we're going to put the player here. So now that the player is here, we're going to look at this position. Control C for copy. And we're going to go back into the game and add the action to is overlapping door. And the action is the player. Is going to set position, control, oh, I just hit control C before control V. So don't do that. Don't hit control C right there because I need to get my position again. Add actions, set position. Now, control Z or control V, control V. Now remember, this is only the X and this is only the Y. So we need to get rid of the second number, which is the Y number. And then on this one, we need to get rid of the first number, which is the X number. So let's test that one out. Oh, it put me down here. And that is very odd. Did I do something wrong when I recopied? 1571, 779. Oh, I left a 7 in there. That's why. And it couldn't go off a layout, so it couldn't actually put it that far down. Now we should work right. Yep, it's going to kick us away. So we can't exit the game. It's not sending us to our thing, our win level. So we need to say when the door open, or when the player is going to overlap the door open. We're going to add the action of going to the system with the layout of you win. Now remember, we did set this invisible. We have two sets of code acting at the same time since these two are overlapping. And let's see if that creates any bugs. It did not. So because it is on the, chances are, if the other door was higher on the Z order, it may actually send me to the you win screen when I don't want it to. if it is doing that for you, let's go ahead and fix that code. So we're going to say, uh, actually, no. Well, I actually can't really test to see if the code's working. Uh, so we're going to hope that yours is working the same as mine. And so let's go ahead and run this and see if the entire game is working. We know the death is, we know the ladders are. Let's just go ahead and go over here. And do this. Oh, I did not actually mean to die, but we saw some issues. So when we hit the key, it did not destroy the key. But it did unlock the door, and the door showed into the green here. If you want to do that for a visual, that way they know something has changed, that would be good. I actually don't want that. So we're going to say door open. Uh, it is already behind it. So since it's spawning the object into the game, it's spawning it in as the newest layer on top. So let's go ahead and fix that. And we also, don't forget, when we overlap the key, we also need to destroy the key now. And also, when we set this door to be visible, you can either say when door is visible on a new code, this is what we're going to do, or during this same action, we are going to make this door open. And set Z elevation down to 0. 100 looking down to 0. So we're going to say 0. I actually have not had a chance to play with that yet, so we're going to see if it worked. And before we see if it works, we're going to put our guy up here. So it did not work. So let's do the vice versa. So, and this may not actually be the option to use. Well, it disappeared it completely. So let's say 1. Done. It's still showing on top. So we're going to settle for that little bug there. If you did not want to set for that little bug there. Oh, everything's lagging again. There we go. We still have our destroy there. We don't need to set the Z elevation. And we could just simply do this. So that's a fix. There we go. And there was some slight change to the door, so we saw some difference. And we need to test. Is it going to send us to you win? Yes, it is. So we're going to claim our coins. So we have interactive game with controls. We have death, we have win, and we have things disappearing, changing, and moving. Um, but let's say, where was I thinking? I'm going to give this a pause on the recording real quick. Okay, I figured out our next step. And we are going to code for the WSAD for the event game sheet. We're going to add event, and when keyboard is down, or when keyboard key code is down, and we're going to say A. And when A is down, and remember, it's not as simple as saying when A is down, go to the left, because we have two different things. So when A is down, we need to tell the player, not on this one, on this one, on the platform, we are going to simulate the control of moving left. And now we're going to do the same for A, W, and D, or S, W, and D. So we can do Control Z, Control V for the W, for the S, and for the D. So we have all bits of code for 4 button pushes, and they're all the same. Then just go through here, double click these, make this one W, or whatever letter you want it to be, or whatever button I guess I should say you want it to be. D, and done. And I was still thinking about the 8 direction. We do not need the 4th direction, not for the platform. So let me back that up and explain what happened. So since I had this selected and I hit delete, it only deleted that one. So it deleted the starting action. So at some point in time, it's just going to make the player start moving left, or simulate the control of moving left. We don't want that, so hit delete again. Or if you make sure you select the entire thing, you can hit delete one time. And now we also need to simulate the WSAD for the ladder controls. Now, this one is going to get a little bit tricky. So, we need to find out how to set the up, down, left, right keys to control this whenever our 8 direction is enabled. But first, let's set it up to do these controls just like we did here. So we're going to say, instead of making new code, let's add it onto here and see what happens. We're going to say player, simulate control, A is going left. Actually, no, before we code all these, let's back that up a step. We're going to code for W. We're going to code for W first. This is going to help us save some time during coding if the code does not work for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell the player to simulate the 8 direction of going up. And I'm going to say that this is going to send him up. I don't think it's going to send him as a jump. Oh, that's right. We changed the letters, but we forgot to change the action also. So W is going to send me for jump. Done. D is going to send me right. Done. And then our 8 direction is going to send us up when W is also set. So I want to see if it's going to change us our 8 direction. So our 8 direction is not being changed. I'm not just going up. But I am when I'm on the ladder, and I cannot move left and right because we have not coded for that. So now that we know we can do this because we have set code for these to be enabled or disabled, so even though it's trying to run this code with it disabled, it is not able to run this code, so it's just going to run that code. So remember, we're on A now, we're adding this action over here, and we're going to send the player simulate control left. Now for D, we're going to make the player 8 directions, simulate control to the right, and add one more event. On key is down for S, because we need a downward motion now. And we're going to make the player, 8 direction, simulate control of going down. Let's give that a quick test. Now, if it was messing up the code, if you have different speeds for directions, this would get very buggy. But since we've set our code properly, everything works as it should. I'm not taking off flying going up when I'm holding the W down. Alright, so we officially have game start, game death, game win, retry buttons all around for those. Actions to make these things disappear, actions to make this one change. So let's give our game a full 100 test and see if it is ready for upload to iDev. There we go, that's a solid. I cannot break through. I can fall down the side there. And oh, I died. So retry, yes. Yep, that one worked. And I'm going to just show that one time real quick. The pink to the blue, or purple to blue, and it's changing back when we're not over top of it. And that's a solid, so we're not going to be able to jump through it. And it's sending us back. Made the barriers disappear. And say we missed that, we could just make our way this way, climb up and get it since the barrier's gone. There we are. Just make sure we don't die now. There we go, and we can claim our coins. But we don't have coins. So it's not completely ready for iDev just yet. It seems like that will be on the next video. I'm going to try to keep these at most around an hour because I know there is a lot to follow through on these. Well, there's actually not much to follow through, but I'm trying to explain a lot to where no matter who you are, no matter how new you are, uh, you're going to be able to understand. With that being said, be smart, be responsible, and good luck. And always, we have not saved during this entire session. Save, save, save. Don't lose your stuff. And I've got mine set to download to my computer. You may have yours set to download to Dropbox or even the cloud file. Uh, Whatever you choose. Have a good one, guys.